Uh, I should thank all of you all to come here on this panel and be part of this great event which we're doing called the Wonder Women. All of you all are Wonder Women in your own rights. All of you all are in businesses which once upon a time was a male bastion business. I don't know about Diamond exactly, but I know Richa headed L'Oreal once upon a time. I know about Rubina, who's put up a company called iProspect from day one, now with any mind, getting into generative AI and ML and everything. I've known Gayathiri for very many years, started off doing acquisitions and now heading distribution and acquisition, which was considered as a man's world once upon a time. Binda Dey heads Kolkata Knight Riders, and again a male. I know women's cricket is doing very well now, but to head all-man team on a franchisee, brilliant. We have worked together before, and Shivani again, phone pay, on a sales head, again a male bastion. How have you, and you, from broadcast to Bajaj to head digital, how have you women broken this shackle of being in male bastion environment, or only men worked in these kind of jobs, and today being helmed by women? How did each of y'all go about doing this and making a name for yourself and showing the man that we can do a better job? With you, Suruchi.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. It's really wonderful, like Kalpana said, and it's a pleasure to be on the dais with such wonderful ladies. I started off as an entertainment journalist, so yeah, that I think it's been a journey of 15 years, where from there I am now heading the digital and social corporate communication piece for Bajaj Group. And with Bajaj Group again, because it's a different industry, it's more about the family values, and I think everybody would agree here that the kind of values that Bajaj holds as an Indian conglomerate. So yeah, it's been a journey, and stepping from media to Bajaj again has been an experience where I've faced a lot of male I wouldn't, I'll have to look for a word. I think at the end of this I'll have a word where there's always a kind of a stereotype that we have to face, that whether women are really made for manufacturing industries, B2B industries, will they be able to tackle the kind of hardships that are required, like they have to be available for 24/7, they have to deal with blue-collar workers and things like that. And being in communications, you have to be always available for these kind of problems that a blue-collar worker would face, and how to deal with them. So yeah, it's been a journey. And I think, again, today being here with all these wonderful ladies, it's been a wonderful experience. So thank you, Anilji. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. All the beautiful people. Thank you so much, Indian Television, Anil, Kalpana. And it is such a pleasure to be amidst of such stellar panelists who've done excellently well, and they're continuing to do. And I'm sure they're also influencers, playing many roles, as everyone does, but in a much more prominent way. Now, answering to your question, a little bit about myself in terms of when I started, I'm the first batch of international distribution when it actually just started. I was the first batch when it started, where the business used to just contribute about 2%, and today international business contributes close to about more than 50%, which includes China. And that's been a great stepping stone, where I opened the China market with 3 idiots, which was quite a Herculean task. Now, yes, distribution, revenues, everything is totally male bastion at one point of time. while there has been a lot of changes, but there are a couple of things I would just like to point out. One is gender gap. Gender equality is missing big time at that point of time. Then the other thing is the stereotypical mindset, which used to be there. Third is societal pressures. And usually people, when we started working out at that point of time, and even continue to today as well, so usually people would just come up to us and ask, like, oh, how do you manage your work-life balance? How do you manage your home? And I would just turn around and say, like, why isn't this question asked to a man? It's always a burning question, which is always, which irks me when someone asks, not to decry on whatever males have done, but there has been, I think, the ease in which how society accepts that male to be getting out there and work, and it's fine for him to come back, and then as opposed to a woman who goes out to work and yet comes back, looks after the child and playing the multiple roles that she's expected to play as per the societal norms. Well, I would say in terms of the way how I've gone about it is just kept sharpening my skills and knowledge. And I think advocacy is something which is extremely important for us to kind of continue to empower. And usually I must share another anecdote, like when I started theatrical distribution, which is sitting in one country, which is India, and handling 50 countries, talking to typically the male distributors who have been over like 20 years, and some of them have been hardcore, the typical mindsets who've gone and settled abroad and still have that same cultural mindset. And for the first 15 minutes, it would be, they would not take you seriously. Is she going to like really negotiate minimum guarantees? And is she going to kind of like really talk about, but after the 15 minutes, then they know that because women are born negotiators and multitaskers. They don't even leave a vendor, for God's sake. What are we talking about here? Isn't it? so that post that. And what actually kept going is that just sharpen your skills of your domain. Your domain knowledge plays a huge importance when, and it's significant when you're sitting across the table and trying to crack a deal or negotiating with a broadcaster or with any platform or with a distributor who's right across. And yes, I think a lot also has got to do the way how we are made and the way we conduct business. Which is more towards, touching more towards a softer side rather than being very cutthroat. So I guess these are the things that probably has helped me in a way. Yeah, thank you.
So, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's such an interesting conversation to have, at all points in time. And I can't agree more with you on the stereotyping. And if I talk about myself being in the marketing technology space, I think there's always a label when it comes with technology that they think it's a male bastion, right? And I don't know why. I think it's about an unconscious bias that a lot of people have. Right from, I think when you're a child, unconsciously you're thinking that, the games that you buy for the boys are a little bit more, which are with the nuts and bolts, and with the girls you want to buy the arts and crafts. Today I'm raising a girl who's 10 years old and often corrects me on that and says that it's a gender neutral world and we should be conscious and be more aware of it, right? So I think it's a lot of stereotyping, and that's why a lot of women who are my age perhaps in the beginning, right, were raised to think about taking fields of creativity, arts a little more than what were thought to be not more technical in nature. But today I see a lot of women in this room, and I ask you, how many of you feel that you're not good at technology? Does everybody think they're good at technology? Raise your hands, show me your hands. People who think they're good at technology. Yeah, almost all of us, right? So it was a gender stereotype. So I'm glad that we are, as we're growing through the ages, are able to break those stereotypes. I think what worked for me to talk about that, Kalpana, that was your second question. I think I'm very grateful. I come from a small city called Amritsar in Punjab, but I was very grateful. My father, I'm the oldest in my family. I have a younger sister and a brother. But my father always said, "You're my oldest son," and even in our times. And the way I was raised was, you got to think about yourself, your education, your career, and then shadi वगैरह हो जाएगी. In our times it was like the moment you're 20, you have to get married, etc. But I was raised very differently. So I'm very glad to have a father who was so open-minded, who raised me like that. Also, I also want to thank a lot to the bosses that I worked with, right? All male bosses, but big supporters. And I would not just say they were mentors, but I think they were my sponsors. Because I think as a woman leader, when you're growing, right, and when decisions are being taken between two candidates on who's going to go forward, it's very easy for everyone, men and women, to support people like them, right, of your own kind. It's natural. It's a natural bias all of us have. I like more people who are like me. And, it takes me time to appreciate qualities in others which I may not have, and that's true for all human beings, right, irrespective of gender. But I was lucky to have bosses who actually, sponsored my case, who put forward my case when that decision was being taken on who would go next amongst candidates. So I think I'm very grateful for that. I think what I did from my standpoint was put my head down, cut out the noise, and focus on what my ambition was, and I was not shy of my ambition. And I wanted to get to a certain place, and I knew I would put in the hard work and ask for it, and that's really what worked for me, so that's what I have to share. Thanks.
Very nice.
Thank you for having me here. I want to start with saying that there's a little bit of feminism in me that says I'm a good leader. I'm not a good woman leader, and I would like to reiterate that it's got nothing to, when you stand up and say you're a great editor-in-chief, nobody says he's a male editor-in-chief. So I think that that's a bias we need to stop with. I headed a large team, and it had men and women, and I didn't identify and said, मेरे पास 70 आदमी और 20 औरतें काम करती हैं. You work with a team of 90, and that's what you need to be proud of, how you groom them or how you raise them. Having said that, I'm thrilled to be here. I am also privileged, like Rubina. I don't think my father gave me a choice. We were I'm a Fauji child, and I was told it was always equal, and you did everything your way. But it takes a village. I couldn't have been here if I didn't have my mom. I could call and say, hey, chairman visiting, need to work 18 hours, and she would take the next flight out and sit here and raise my child and not question why I wasn't there to feed or nurse. Or I have stories to tell which feel like stories, but I had a 2-month-old child, and every 2 hours my father has brought him to the basement car park. My driver has stood out. I've nursed and gone up for my meetings because we had our annual global meetings happening. So you have things you've done which feel very unusual and unexpected, but the fact is that my father was ready to bring him every 2 hours to be fed. So it does take a village. I totally agree, you need people who support you. The one thing not starting with my career, but very early in my career, I realized that our problem on our side as women is we don't ask for things, we assume. She was talking about her daughter growing up that way. The child belongs to both of us. It was never a question that the mother is raising. The father and the mother are raising. It's the same point on every aspect. If you don't ask your bosses, you're never going to get it. And I think that's what we as women do less of. We don't ask. We don't think we are entitled to what we do. If you're good, like she said, if you have the functional expertise, and if you're bloody good at what you do, you've earned the right to ask for it and earned the right to demand it. And I think we as women don't do enough of that. In this aspect, I think men are a little entitled and we are a little shy, and we need to sit up and be a little more entitled. I moved into a sales role very late in my career. I started heading a business, and I said, I need to do the sales role myself. The first thing I learned is कि माँ बहन की गाली कैसे निकालनी है. That is what got me running with 300 men, because if you couldn't cuss like them on the street, you couldn't. I started eating junk. I started drinking chai at 35 because, you know, if I couldn't drink chai, I couldn't go out with them. I didn't start smoking, but I had to step out with my men to talk. And so very late in the day, मैंने दारू पीनी शुरू कर दी, मैंने चाय पीनी शुरू कर दी और गाली निकालनी शुरू कर दी. But bloody hell, nobody after 2 years could tell me that I wasn't the boss or I wasn't heading a team of 300. And that's my learning curve. Now, whether you say it was functional learning, no, I did not learn more about product. I knew a lot more than them about. But give them credit, whether a man or a woman. If you have the expertise and the knowledge, they will respect you. On the flip side, don't think that you don't deserve that respect. Step up. You've earned the right to be there. You've earned the right to be here, and you need to ask for it.
Thank you for inviting me, Anil, Kalpana. Kalpana, you know me for a long, long time. My second job, right? You've seen me a long way. I couldn't agree to more, what the ladies before me told. You know, it really takes a village to bring up, especially a girl child. And the confidence you gain when you're young, that goes a long, long way. I was privileged to have parents, who brought me up as an equal to my brother. In fact, had more expectation from me than my brother, pushed me harder. Career was always the focus. It was not an option at all. When I grew up in Kolkata and when I wanted to move to Bombay to work, they didn't wink for a second. They had full confidence I'll be able to manage it. So it's infectious. When someone has that confidence in you, you grow the confidence too. Similarly, in my, journey in my career, I've had some amazing bosses, both men and women, who've treated me as equals. And that grew my confidence simultaneously. That goes a long way, and I hope, that is something we all can pass on to our team members and grow an atmosphere where men and women are treated exactly as equals. And at the end of the day, they are evaluated for the work they bring in and nothing beyond that. And, today I'm, of course, working in Kolkata Knight Riders. We have 4 men's team and 1 women's team in Caribbean. It's mostly all male-dominated. Again, very privileged, to be in an organization which is, where they have full confidence in women to run such a function. Our CFO is also a woman. My boss never thought even twice. I need to travel around the year with a team which is comprising all of men. He didn't even ponder for a moment, would I be able to handle it or not? So I think this is something we need to, as a culture, build. Show the confidence, and it will, nurture the women, and especially women. We are a little softer by nature. The self-image and, that self-doubt kind of starts growing very early in life. So if it's not handled and nipped in the bud way early, it is a deterrent for the growth of that person as a human being and professionally both. So I hope we can all pass on that light to the next gen.
I don't know what else to say after all the wise words that have been said, but thank you, Anil and Kalpana, for having me here. I think, been with PhonePe for 5 years now, and Kalpana asked this question on how sales is a very male-dominated industry, and I was listening to all of your stories. So I actually do not come from a sales background. I actually come from a hardcore business background, and I think because I had proven my credibility again and again in whatever project, whatever business I was asked to lead, manage, build, is how the sales opportunity landed on my plate, right? And I think, like all of you guys said, I think eternally grateful to people who take a punt on you, people who say that, hey, here's the talent, here's the potential. If we don't nurture it, they will never become who they are meant to be. So I think, it's been a very interesting journey. I think some snippets from what each one of you said, right? I think the whole concept of leadership is imbued with such masculine characteristics, right? Aggression, dominance, competitiveness. And as women, and all of you are tall, I'm really tiny. So I generally feel like, oh, I'm like the smaller one in the room. And that's usual, right? Women are generally a little more submissive like that. But I think what worked really well for me was to keep that personal emotion aside and really own my voice. One of my ex-bosses once told me, I walked up to him and I said, you know what, I'm in a room full of men and they're not listening me. And I'm the one who's building the business here, right? And PhonePe has a very unique way of how we wanted to approach the whole concept of sales. We said we'll build with somebody who understands the business side of the world very well, because at the end of the day, you don't want to build just a sales machine, but a more strategic partnership kind of an outlook. Because if I don't understand your objectives, how will I co-own them? And he said, Shivani, why are you in the room? Ask yourself that question. There is a reason why you have a seat at the table. You have something unique to offer. Bring that voice forward every single time. So I have owned my voice, and I think not thought about how will my voice be perceived, how the questions will look like. If the questions are logical, they will be answered logically, data-backed, in a very, very rational first principles way. I think, interestingly, another aspect which I think, Richa, you also mentioned, I think generally, as women, we're expected to be nice and warm, right? I have a large team, and every time I get very angry at somebody for not showing rigor, for not showing discipline, hey, Shivani was supposed to be the nice one. Shivani is supposed to be the fun one. But my role requires me to be competent and tough. So I think what has really worked for me is finding my own balance, if I may say, or a harmony. How can I be demanding yet caring? Because that's something I can bring to the table. How can I be authoritative and yet respectful, right? So I think it's about creating your own space. It's about creating your own formula of how you work. I also very strongly believe, and each one of the wonderful women here spoke about it, I think you leave an impact. When you do one thing right, you take one step forward, a rising tide rocks all boats, right? So every single time I make an impact from somebody in my team and push them forward, it's an effect that happens. And interestingly for me, I actually had a lot of women bosses over the years, right? So they've been not just sponsors, mentors, but literally like elder sisters nudging me, pushing me, saying, you go girl, we're here to back you up. So I think that's what I would say. It's you do one for the team and the entire community goes one step higher. But yeah, thank you.
A great insight from all of y'all, and all of y'all have put your points of views in how the business, you've handled those businesses. But we still see, like I said, gentlemen club, Anil said men's club in most sectors. And we see very few women in the C-suite. What's stopping women for asking? A man will pat his back and say, I did this. We women normally don't talk about our achievements. Like Rubina said, we don't ask, we don't demand. Is this one of the reasons that we are not seeing many women on the C-suite now? Or is it growing slowly and surely? So Richa, do you want to take that?
So, yeah, I think it is true, but the way things are moving now, it's really heartwarming to see that women have started taking a stand for themselves. And like we see on this panel as well, the world is changing very fast. So in fact, I was going through some data, and there are still like just 1/3 of the world has women entrepreneurs as yet. But the women entrepreneurs are being noticed. That is the positive side to it, because like we see all the businesses that are being built by women with all the values that the warmth and the caringness that comes across. I think people are getting to realize that women are, like Anilji said, are better versions of humankind. So, yeah, so I think it's good to see that the world is changing, and all the businesses, if I can just mention like Sugar Cosmetics, Nykaa, and other, even in hardcore business worlds now with AI and PhonePe, it's good to see the change that's happening. So I hope we have equal very soon. Yeah, equal representation.
I think we need to just break the barrier of the gentlemen's club to women's club, which will not be perceived as kitty parties. Anyway, jokes apart, I think we are getting there. We are getting there. There are mentors, there are supporters, and I think it's a two-way system also. And there is acceptance, which is something which I'm seeing, over a period of time. Um, Down the line, definitely, we need more. I wouldn't say we need more empowerment. There has to be more empowerment around women empowering women. That is most important. And that truly starts within the family as well. There is a lot of societal conditioning or the mindset building which begins from there. And from there, if it actually, that's the root, from there when things begin to change, women themselves begin to feel their importance, within the family and outside as well. I mean, as they say, everything starts from the home. So I think that is there. We still have a long way to go, but I mean, I want to see a day where, there wouldn't be Wonder Woman. There would be a leadership summit where men, women, both the genders are sitting together and having a conversation, not about the gender bias or pay gaps or something, more about leadership and being there as equals. So we have to go a long way, and I think a lot of support system has to come through as well. And yeah, I think that's something which is the starting point probably.
So, slightly different point of view. I'm glad we still continue to have this women-led conversation because I still think to get to where we want to be, a lot of awareness is still needed. We've gone a far way along from, I think, when I started my career. And if I look at the stats right now, like you rightly pointed out, maybe not in the C-suite, but if you look at senior executives, it's moving to a good balance, right? And I feel happy, I was at AdTech recently, and it was in a women's conversation. It was just a panel on marketing and technology. And it was an all-women's panel, right? So I think we are making those strides gradually, and conversations like this with men and women in the room both really help. So I think thanks for putting that together. I think on your question, Kalpana, which is about the Gentlemen's Club, I spoke about it briefly when I was answering your first question. There is bound to be in-group favoritism, right? That happens with everybody. I think what we women do wrongly, and Richa, I understand what you did to do, but I think we try very hard to fit in that, right? And perhaps I relate to you because at some stage earlier in my career, maybe even I tried to do that. Times were like that. I think, but now we need to stand up for our own selves, for what we bring to the table, the way we are, without trying to fit into the Gentlemen's Club. And that's when we can stand apart, cheer for each other, and then get noticed for what we bring to the table without trying to explain whether, we're aggressive, not aggressive, whether, we are understanding, kind, what are the qualities of a woman, man. I think, like some of you rightly pointed out, saying that we are leaders, and how do we display it, and then, we form together. The other thing is, I think, as we are raising the next generation, whether it's our children, whether it's the young women who come into the workforce, I think we have to encourage them with qualities which I think we still don't as much as a society, which is aggression, ambition, dominance, risk-taking. These are still not associated with women. We don't raise women like that, right? Whether it's as mothers, or whether it's, as the new workforce that comes in. We expect, the woman who comes in the team will, soften the whole environment. Why should she? Why should she not be as cutthroat, aggressive, ambitious, or dominant as the male counterparts who come into the workforce, right? And we should celebrate those qualities as well. So I think if these are changes that we bring about, soon, we'll be able to break through that club of either men or women and be looking at people for what they bring to the table. That's my point of view.
So it's, I think things are happening. I think I'm not personally happy with the pace at which it's happening. So it is moving. It is not to say it's not moving. You do get an acknowledgement. You do, you asked about my industry. In Surat, there is no single woman there. So if I walk into a room of 140 men, I will be the only woman other than the hospitality industry who's serving you. There is no woman in the industry. It has just not been. Now that's how the industry has built. It's not to say they are not receptive of me being there. It's not to say that they are not acknowledging me or appreciating what I bring to the table, but it's my experience and the journey that I bring to the table. It's distinct from what they have, and that's why they appreciate it. It's not a... I think the minute you start forgetting, which is what I started with, it's not a woman leader, it's a leader. I've worked for that many years, and I've earned the right, and I've done good to be here. And I think it's a matter of whether it's the confidence that came from the parents who appreciated you, it's the bosses who gave you opportunities, or what you did yourself. But it's a certain sense of confidence in your expertise, which you have to be good to be here. So it's not like it'll be easy again, but it's also, please understand, the people we are still talking a very few cities right now. We are talking a very little. So it starts with the education, and I'm a firm believer that, the more we get our girls into, better colleges and into an appreciation that, yes, it is needed. It's not that at 21, the end goal is not become a graduate and marry. And it's still there in a large number of our cities. When we talk to our consumers, the conversation is that while I can work, I need to find something that fits around my role as a mother. And we are saying that it's not an either or. You can have it all. And I think that mindset that, yes, I deserve to have it all, comes from whether it's your parents or your bosses guiding you or your peers next to you who say, yeah, you need to go to school, I'll fill in. And there is no shame. And what has changed for me in these 26, 27 years is my calendar says that I'm going to school. My assistant puts it in the calendar and says that she's going to school. She needs to leave early I need to get my hair done before I'm traveling for a trip. It's in the calendar. I'm not shying away from the fact that I need to get it done. And it's not like you're hiding away. The minute you own it, I don't think anybody questions it. So if I'm allowed it, everybody in my office is. And it's the same. So whether a man wants to go to, pick up his child from school or doesn't have help at home, it's the same as a woman wanting to go and pick up the kid, or it's the last day of school, or it's a concert. It's as important as the next pitch and the next, job that you'll do. And when you make it seem like it's right, it is right. It's not somebody else dictating. It is still, and I agree with Ravina, you tend to want people around you, and I think it's still going to be a while before you see us on the boards. But you can see the change. Like I said, the unhappy part is that it's a very slow change, extremely slow change.
Richa, you said you make it a point that you have to go to school, you go to school. Yes. But I think most of us who are mothers have some way or the other gone through a guilt trip that we've not been able to be there for our child at times, or we've been hesitant to ask our bosses saying that I need to go to my son's school or my child's school, or he's got a concert. Some way we take a step back and we say, okay, we've got a lot of work, let's finish the work. So I think all of us have gone through that guilt trip some way or the other in the life. And I hope with the newer generation and the women force which is coming now will stand up and say, sorry, I have to go. Like you said, I need to go and do my hair. How many of us, I don't know, have ever done that, But I think the newer generation is getting to that and saying, it's me time for me and I need to go. So I hope that happens.
I think you'll be surprised. I went to teach at a B school recently. Take a session. Teach is a wrong word at this age, but take a session. And there, we were a lot more, we had to stay till the bosses were there, or we had to finish something. They are way more, the younger generation, I think, is way more confident about saying, boss, I need my time off. I need to go, I need to do this. It's 6. So I think that way they are a lot more open about it.
Absolutely.
Now, man, woman, I think it's a common generation thing, but I'll tell you a difference. I stopped feeling guilty that I couldn't do all school trips because I cannot do all school. If I need to be good at what I'm doing, I cannot miss and go, means the school needs me every month, I cannot do it. Yeah. So very quickly, So when somebody says, what's the toughest job, thing that you do in your job, I say calendar matching. So, you know, I have to make sure that my husband's calendar and mine are mapped, and who says I'm out first. It's the first right, you know, the first man wins. Because I say, today's my meeting, click quickly before he says he can. He needs to be at school. So we have a, you know, it's not somewhere, even at a personal level, not just job. I'm saying somewhere you start to say on both ends that I need to give up a few of my meetings, even though somewhere subliminally I'll say, oh crap, it may impact my career. And at the same side, you tell your kid, you know, sports day, choose one, annual day, choose one, but you cannot have both parents for everything. And I think the kids are quite open to it, meaning it's not like I have a guilt trip anymore of, oh, I needed to do. You have an excitement that you miss out on because you want to see the kid there. Gadgets have made my life easier. Technology.
As human beings, I feel, you know, we naturally gravitate towards our tribe. And tribe is not just defined by gender. It can be some interest, you know, that's common. I mean, gender, of course, you know, like for instance, when I travel with the team, and especially during pandemic, you're stuck like in a hotel with no access to the outside world for 3 months. It's all men, so like, how do I take care of my eyebrows? Like, you know, really, who do I discuss this with? I mean, those, of course, you need a familiarity with the tribe, and consciously or subconsciously, there are biases that we develop. Sometimes we don't even realize, you know, that be it a man or a woman, that you have a bias towards a certain kind of personality, gender. I might think I'm very open-minded and I'm very fair, but subconsciously things do work, and we have to acknowledge that. And be it gentlemen's club or, you know, there are so many kind of things like that. It will exist. You can't do anything about it. Men, if they like to hang around after work among themselves, good for them. I mean, one shouldn't feel threatened by that, but maybe in workplaces where, you know, having a kind of a good camaraderie with your colleagues is important because it does help your career. A lot of discussions do happen over smoke break. It's the fact of life, you know, and women, I mean, of course, most women don't smoke, so that they do lose out. So these kind of things do happen, but then develop your common interests, you know. I mean, it's important to have a camaraderie. It doesn't need to be in the male bastion only. Develop some other things, you know. I mean, common interest areas where you can network, have a group of your own. It can be over food, it can be over hiking, so many other things. Open up your mind and see. I mean, networking is very, very important to grow in your career, professional career, and also you make some, for me personally, I made some of the best friends at work, you know, and simply because we have maybe common interest over books, over shows, and we like each other's company. At the end of the day, we are human beings, and we want to hang around with each other beyond work, and work comprises a big time of our life. You know, all of us spend beyond the office work hours a lot of time. Now that, you know, even though a lot of work is happening from home, so there is a blurry line between home and office hours also. So we actually end up spending a lot of time with all our office colleagues. So important to have a common area where, you know, you can network, grow your friendship, and nurture that. Don't feel threatened by a gentleman's club. Let it exist. If they like to hang out, have your own club, create your own clubs, and go ahead with it.
I think it's a very disadvantageous seat, I must say. This is like a really bad seat like that. But very honestly, I think, you know, and I'll speak from a more team perspective or an organization perspective. I think, you know, all the gentlemen's club and people hanging out together, I think sometimes it's very difficult for women to break that through. It's not easy. As women, we are also not very confident about, you know, sometimes showing up for that after night party, even if we don't want to party that night. And some people just don't want to be around, you know, when somebody's smoking. And how do you really change that, right? And I think that's where some of us, like all of us here, I think can play such a huge role, and I'm sure each one of us are playing that role in bringing about some kind of systemic change, right? Like at least in my case, every time I see in my team that, there's a gender diversity ratio is a little messed up, I go out of my extra way to make sure that I hire women in that particular setup, or I juggle it around. If I know there are 2-3 strong and I'm searching for the right word, but 2-3 strong male personalities, I split them out. I by default make it a point that, there are some strong women with strong people, and just the mix is a lot more diverse. And that works very candidly, right? At the end of the day, the system needs to push people to not break the gentleman's club. Everybody has a right to hang out with the people that they like hanging out with, but it cannot be a barrier to somebody else's growth. It cannot be a barrier to what the organization is set out to achieve. And I think if that is happening, then it's a really big problem. Interestingly, one of the things, and at PhonePe, we've taken a goal of gender diversity ratio, right? And what we noticed was, while this change was very evident in the younger levels, entry level, management trainees, even managers, it was still a very hard thing to find at the leadership positions, right? And that's what required so many changes. So now there is a goal, and we actually have one of the better gender diversity ratios. Now there is a push that if there has to be a certain amount of ratio maintained, what happens is when there is a job opportunity out and there are 10 requirements, if a man has 7, he will still apply. If a woman has 10, she'll be like, maybe not, let me just, not the same thing. So I think that push from a system perspective to hire, and also awareness building, right? Sometimes, I think it's surprising, but a lot of people today are actually open-minded to even hear that they're biased. So, you sit down with somebody and said, hey, what you did was actually very, very biased, and you did make the other person not give out their point of views or opinions. And sometimes people are in a shock, but more often than not, they show up because that's what works for the organization, that's what they're out here to do. So I think reminding people of what is their purpose of being in that room, of being in that team, of being in that organization, and I think it's all about getting to that purpose. If the purpose is to make that sale happen and that happens over chai sutta, be my guest. Please come join. I will throw a chai party this time. But I think remembering that purpose is what makes all the difference.
Been a fantastic, conversation happening between all of us. What is that one thing you would like to see with the newer generation of women coming into this field? Be it anything, technology, sports, fintech, ad tech, film distribution, broadcast. What is that one thing you want to tell the women today as to what they should do that they are counted and, later on become leaders and not drop out and say, okay, humse nahi ho raha hai, shaadi ho gayi, bacche ho gaye, to career will take a back seat now, and, probably after 5 years, I will decide to take this career up. And most organizations, everybody says that, we're taking back women. I've spoken to a lot of leaders in advertising who say we've got a program to get back women into the system. But when you turn around and ask them, are these women being taken up in the same positions as when they left off? There is a hem and hawing around and saying, that is to be decided, we don't know, because everything has grown, things have changed. What would you like to do in your organization where women drop out and want to come back into the system and start work again?
How kind. That's why I like being around women. Anyhow, so I was going to say, beautifully, I think we actually started an initiative at PhonePe which is called Mothers at PhonePe. And that has two interesting sides. One is obviously to help women make a seamless transition back to work, right? And, the benefits and the flexibility around it while ensuring the designation. But I think the other part, which I really love, is educating the people around them that how do you inculcate a woman back to work? So, and it's not just about women. Actually, when somebody in my team was going on a paternity break with twins, and it was an early delivery, the HR actually sat me down and she was like, listen, twins, not a planned, it's still 2 months away. So I think that awareness building and telling people how to operate in an environment like that helps. I think to answer your question, Kalpana, on what is that one change that I would love to see in organizations especially, I think is, like I think Rubina and Richa both pointed out, I think it's not about man or woman. There's a requirement, there's a job. Here is what is needed for that position. You can fill it, you're there. And I think this things about, oh, you're an early woman, you've just become a mother, we cannot give you this. Or, oh, you've just got married, you're going to go on a maternity break in 2 years, let's not give you that. I think I would love for that to go. The second thing that I personally feel very strongly about is that I think when women show aggression, very commonly it's pointed out as, oh, she's being emotional. Oh, why are you being so anxious? And when a man is being aggressive, he's assertive, he's ambitious, right? So I think this dual definition or dual reference of how humans behave in circumstances, I would love to beat that out. I run a large team. I have another colleague, she runs the other part of the team. And every single time somebody tells her, hey, you're being too aggressive, I stand up and I say, sorry, she's just teaching you how to do your job. She's just being rigorous. So I think I would love for more and more women to stand up for each other and make that change happen.
So if it comes to just one thing, I would say don't get comfortable. That's one of the things I've seen with a lot of my friends who've been on a similar journey. I mean, being a woman and handling a career is difficult. I mean, especially with motherhood and, the certain responsibilities in household, that's assumed, to be taken care of. So don't get comfortable, demand things, equal share of responsibility at home and at work. And the biggest barrier I've seen is people getting very comfortable with the situation they are in. If it's like a glass ceiling you're facing and your career is not growing beyond a point, or if you've taken a maternity break and want to take that plunge back home, most of the times it's in your head where you're thinking, should I take the plunge or not? The important thing is to put yourself out there. Do that first thing, prepare your resume, aggressively network, tell everyone you're looking for a job. If you're not, again, if your career has plateaued, don't be just like comfortable with the situation. Aggressively look out, make it very clear to your bosses that you're not happy with the current situation, demand what you think you deserve. Most of the time it's simply because, we've not asked for it and grown very comfortable in whichever situation, at a job or at home, and not asked for it. If you ask for it, you will find actually there are more takers for it than what you thought the response would be.
I'm going to be a little repetitive here. I think that, again, I'm flipping over and talking about us as leaders. I don't think we should be assessing and saying mothers or non-mothers. Exactly what you said, that there is a role, you need to fulfill it. Tell me how I can make it happen. Whether you want a little flexibility, want to leave a little early, come a little late, but that could be for any reason. But reciprocally, I would like to say it's your choice. If you decide that, hey, I want a 4-year break in my career because I want to enjoy my child, you want the right to. So I think that there should be, even on the other side, and I see a lot of it amongst friends, where you've done good and you've accelerated in your career and a girl wants to take a break, the friends will say, oh my God, how, this will happen, that will happen. I'm saying it works both ways. It's your choice of when you want to. You'll realize very early that there's no right time to be a mother, whether it's early in your career, late in your career. You think that, this will not stop my trajectory or will. And as leaders, I would just say that this is one of the things. If somebody gets hurt, you break your leg, you accommodate a person, right? You say that, hey, what do you want to do? How can I make it happen? How can I facilitate it? A lot more bigger organizations have childcare, daycare, or, rooms where you can nurse or things like that. And it's just, I think that we as leaders in our companies need to make sure that this is not you are not accommodating, you're not doing her a favor. That's the point, that our mindset shouldn't be that I'm doing, the girl who's in my team a favor. This is what I need to provide her to work. It's my role and HR's role to make sure that this happens. And that's the mindset I would like, that as leaders sitting here, hey, you're entitled to it. How can I make it happen? And that's where I'd like to be.
So the one thing I hope that all of us can change is assumptions and judgment when it comes to women, and it still exists, right? Let me give you examples. Even today when we interview women, the first question is that, are you planning to get married? If you're married, do you have a child? You know, these are all leading questions, right? Subconsciously that come to you, and a lot of women sitting in this room perhaps have gone through that, right? I hope that can change. Because today we live in an environment where there is hybrid work, there is flexibility, right? Organizations are more aware, more supportive from where it started when I started my work about 20 years ago. That is one change I'd like to see. The other thing is judgment, right? Sometimes, we just assume when it comes to networking, oh, she's got a child, she's got to go home, so let's not ask her. Why not ask? Why not let the woman make a choice whether she wants to join you for drinks or not join you for drinks? If she's had a baby, if she wants to come back to work, not come back to work, why are we having those judgments? And I'll tell you my own personal experience. I got back to work, just about, in our times there was 3 months of maternity. I got back in 6 weeks, part-time. And part-time was not, like 4 hours a day was like not acceptable at that time. I'm talking about 10 years ago. And that's because I'd taken a senior role, and my job needed it, and I would go for 4 hours, come back. But no, nobody respected the fact that I was serious about my job. And that's why I was leaving a little baby at home and still coming for 4 hours a day. And they said, oh, there were snide comments that perhaps she's just like shunning work, etc. And also the other people, the society around, oh, she's such a bad mother. How can she leave a 6-week-old baby and go to work? So leave women alone. Let them make their own choices. So I would request everybody to just not assume or judge women for the choices that they make, and just let them be with whatever makes them happy.
Yeah, actually, I empathize with you because most of the stuff has been spoken, most of the points have been covered. I think just to sum it up, I think beautifully everybody's spoken so well. Equal opportunities is definitely an important part. That's a change that I would like to see, taking everyone's point. Let's just normalize the situation that a woman is in whichever situation she is in. Let's not bring the stereotypical or mindset. Let's have growth mindset. And that's one thing I would like to see a change. Definitely empowering each other. It's just not males or females. If it's a team, whether it's family or whether it's at your workplace, let's just collaborate. I would love to see more collaboration and not people getting insecure of each other. And that's something which most of us don't want to talk about it, but it exists. Which I think is a very important part in our lives, and whether it's you're on a top position, whether you're in any role that women go through. Let's normalize the situation that a woman is in, whether she's a mother, whether she's doing plenty of other things that she needs to go back. And let's, again, taking your point, let's not be judgmental about and throwing remarks on them saying that, oh, XYZ and everything. And above all, I definitely would like to see women empowering women. And I strongly advocate that, giving opportunities as a leader, and letting them learn. Like, for instance, if a woman is coming back after having a baby, taking a maternity leave, she should be definitely given that opportunity. And if not, looking at her track record, probably the HR should kind of say, you know what, this is something that you could probably, we could put you on a vocational training, side by side, and let's up you. So I guess these are the things which definitely would love to.
Surichi, last words, and I think we need to wrap up. It's
I
an
have a
interesting...
question. Kalpu, I have a question after she finishes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody's already said, but then when we are talking about a change, I would really want to see, because there are these things that I've been thinking about, that why there are smoking zones in offices, and why not a creche in every office? Like, why is it a difference always that it's something you're asking for it. It needs to be a basic need of if you are having more of women leaders, and when we are saying women entrepreneurs growing, and when we have the leaders giving the kind of results that are required, like if the person is having that kind of a like they are delivering what they are asked in their role, then they should have all these kind of facilities available in the offices. So yeah, that is one change that I think we should be normalized, because when we're talking about women, mothers is something, a name, a second name to a women. And all of us are here talking about how they've all faced these kind of like maybe guilt trips, or there have been really, yeah, but I think this is a change that I really wanted to point out. Rest all, I think all of us have spoken, so yeah.
Yeah. So I had a question to all of you all. Anil here. Is there more pressure on you all to switch off when you all get home as compared to the man and become a member of the family, as compared to a man who can possibly bring home work pressures? Is there more pressure on you all to switch off and become family members? A man can be allowed to be pressured because of work, but women, do they have to switch off and become nurturers, homemakers, etc.? And how do you all deal with that? And how do you all bring about a change in your homes because of that? Or you'll have fought against the family and said, screw you, I'll do what I want. Richa must have done that. एक दो गाली दी होगी सास और ससुर को और पति को भी.
पति को मौका नहीं मिला. No, I think it's a combination. I would say it's different for different situation. If you were coming in a joint family, I'm sure there is a lot more. We are privileged enough to live in a country where you also have household help. So to be very honest, a lot of it is covered. If you're a working woman, you feel almost entitled to say, I need XYZ done. And I think that's something we all are moving towards, right? So nobody has the stress of, oh, मुझे खाना पकाना है.
ये खाने की बात नहीं. It's switch off work mode.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think it's your role. How do you switch off if I have a pitch or he has a pitch, it's the same. Or if I have a big event the next day, it's
You're
not.
privileged, boss. You learn galis. The other women haven't.
सबको
There is
आती है,
pressure.
कोई बोलता नहीं है.
नहीं.
There's pressure. I don't like.
Yeah, that's why. I
There
wanted
is
another point of view. You're a
Yeah.
No. I'm saying it's a lot of it is also self-inflicted. I want to spend time with my child, right? I want to do it.
No, this is not about child. This is about switching off work and becoming family.
Switching off work to do something. I have.
It could be to do nothing.
Yeah, I have Netflix nights.
me
Let
give you my
Rubina
example.
talk. Let Rubina talk.
Let me give you my example.
Netflix. She has husband. She has kid. She has
Yeah, I have mother-in-law.
hobbies. Mother-in-law. सास बहू.
मेरी दूर रहती है.
तुम सास है कि
Well,
दूर है? अच्छा. You've got it all figured out, Richa. More power to you.
like I have to say, husbands these days are more supportive, more understanding. They're okay if you carry back home. But child naturally will gravitate more towards the mother, especially if they're young and they expect you to give more time. Your in-laws expect you to behave in a certain fashion. They expect you to give them more time than even.
How do you switch off work mode?
It is.
Because you've got to pitch like she said the next morning.
Yeah, so you got to divide your time. Yeah, you have to cater to your family. And I'm not ashamed of that. I like spending time with my family. Sometimes I have to switch off, and I have to say that I have to put. That's the tough one for women. Making those choices. When you can make those choices, you have to make choices. You have to give up something to get something. And there are
मेरे
times
से तो झगड़ा करने वाली है Richa.
nahi. And honestly, let me tell you right now that we've come back from a holiday. This serious amount of work which is happening. Suddenly my cook decides to leave. Who's going to find a new cook? Not my husband. I have to find it if I have to get back to work, right? And I mean, these are things that come to women, right? And women have to handle these things and pressures. And is it easy? No, it's not easy. While we share responsibilities, work, you can say, okay, a PTA is shared and all that. There are some things in the household. It's
That
still
a man
pretty much.
can't do. I can't keep my room clean. I need a house help.
That's your very lame
that
excuse.
I don't agree.
But
But
a house help. I'm not saying a wife. I need a house help.
But yes,
So
Anil,
do
I
I.
agree. There are times where you have to say, okay, let me put it aside for some time. And and these days we are fortunate, we live in a world which is, sort of hybrid. We're working from home, so you can say, okay, I'm going to switch it off for 4 hours and then later, push yourself.
I'm being told not to continue this discussion. He's come behind me.
Yeah.
Unless somebody has a strong point to make, you have a strong point, anyone strong point.
I have an example to give. You were telling me about balancing or pressure taking. When I had my child 15 years ago, my daughter's 15 now, I used to leave office at 6 and I started back working again every night at 11. So the minute my husband went to bed, but I decided that these 5 hours are, and till date, I work from 11 to 3 every night because I can't catch up. And it's not, so the pressure is also self-inflicted. It's not to say that, I do have days, Netflix nights and nothing else, or I do have days where my kids will shut the door and say, don't go, she'll snap. They know. But it's a balancing act, like she said, but there are certain things you also tell yourself you need to do. It's not like he's insisting ki tu maid leke aa kal, but you know you have to do it.
Prioritizing it is, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you for joining us. And I should actually tell Binda and Rubina, thank you for the last minute invitation to both of y'all. And Gayathiri, thank you so much. Surichi and Richa, also thank you. I think yours was also a last minute invite. And thank you for being here on the panel for us. And it was a great conversation. I think is 7 women on the panel. You can keep continuing talking about all the issues, but I think we need to call it a night. And let's now congratulate all the women who are going to be getting their awards and being felicitated for whatever they've been doing. Thank you so much.
And 7 is a number to create wonders also as well. So thank you so much for the incredible and interesting discussion that we have just heard. And Mr. Vanwari, the question that you asked, I think that requires a different panel to discuss because this was that topic. So thank you all of you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. And yes, one picture all together. I would like to call upon stage Mr. Vanwari to kindly felicitate all the gorgeous women who are on stage before they leave the stage. So I'll take a moment of yours and give them a beautiful L'Oreal hamper as a token of thanks.